first off the bat, let's start off with Invincible Season 4. And coming into it, my expectations were through the roof. Mainly, I was waiting for Invincible to actually be invincible. For the past 3 seasons, let's be honest, Mark has been taking nothing but L's. I wanted to see if the story would finally progress in a way that allowed him to reach his true potential. And so the story immediately sets the stakes high. Mark has to leave Earth to stop the remaining Viltrumites from conquering and expanding while their population is still vulnerable, which is around less than 50. And because of this, the pacing shifts pretty dramatically. We watch Alien and Omni-Man race across the galaxy, recruiting allies for the upcoming war and getting resources that they need. And by the time we hit the finale of this season, the narrative leaves us reeling from the devastating consequences of failing to fully stop Thragg. This season excelled at breaking down character motivations. You take Thaddeus, who finally reveals why he killed Emperor Argyle and unleashed the Scourge virus, which was born out of his futile, unheard attempts to bring change to his people. And then you have Thragg, and his character becomes increasingly fascinating. Taking over after Argyle, he initiated the Great Purge to cull the weak from their population, completely explaining his ruthless drive to conquer and breed. In Nolan, his character takes a dramatic shift towards redemption. He's actively trying to right his past wrongs, attempting to mend things with Debbie, and building a relationship with Oliver. And what's wild is that Nolan is now okay with recruiting anyone, aliens, monsters, whatever it takes to kill his own kind as atonement for his sins, all while knowing Thaddeus has perfected a lethal virus, which shows a brilliant job using flashbacks of Nolan's coming of age moment where he had to fight his own parents just to survive. Makes you truly sympathize with him and how messed up the Viltrumite culture is. Finally, Mark goes through this massive growth. He starts the season completely apathetic, brooding like Batman, and dealing with the fallout of the alternate universe Invincibles. From there, he's forced to make the ultimate heroic gamble. Do you take one life to save the world or spare it and risk total annihilation? And so Mark chooses the former. He finally accepts that it is okay to take a life if there's no other choice, a boundary he crosses again in his brutal lethal brawl with Conquest. But by the end, failing to kill Thragg forces a final compromise. You fight and risk Earth or submit so the Viltrumites leave Earth unharmed. Mark ultimately chooses to submit to protect his home. Moving on to the animation, there was tons of online debate comparing Amazon's budget to anime with lower funding and better visuals, and to an extent I agree, the animation could be cleaner, but Amazon clearly is providing their massive voice acting payroll. That being said, when Thragg and the Viltrumites went toe-to-toe with Invincible and his allies, I was locked in, and so those fights were very well done. I loved how heavily this season leaned into the classic trolley dilemma, deciding which tracks to pull the lever on to save the majority. Thaddeus faced it, and Mark was forced through it multiple times. And the season addresses redemption very masterfully. Can someone like Omni-Man Nolan truly make things right after the atrocities he's committed? And so the narrative handles it beautifully, showing Nolan genuinely is putting in the work, to be a hero, be a father, and give Debbie a reason to potentially recognize his change. But that sort of leads into my biggest criticism, the show hinting that Debbie might fall back in love with Nolan. I just don't know how you bounce back from that after the entire world knows how many people he slaughtered. And then there's the filler episode. I didn't hate it, and it was definitely an eye-opening experience for Mark's moral dilemmas as he wrestles through that, but it was definitely the most boring episode of the season. And then another issue. The show never really explains why Alan recruited Tech Jacket. Unless I missed something, I was left wondering what a human in an exosuit is supposed to do against a faction of literal supermen. And then you have Adam Eve. She was sort of sidelined this season. She existed purely to help Mark process his trauma. The choice to have her get pregnant, hide it from Mark, which could have been a massive motivator for him to survive and get home. And then she gets an abortion, felt like a strange writing lead to her. And there was multiple times where she's trying to tell Mark that she's pregnant, she doesn't. It's boring writing. If Mark and Eve actually had a child here, it would have massively amplified the stakes of his final submission to Thragg. And despite those gripes, I did enjoy the season. I was engaged, sometimes annoyed, but we got a lot of lore here, incredible action this season, and the story progressed at a great pace. And for the most part, Invincible was actually invincible. Again, he couldn't beat Thragg, but the way he handled Conquest, phenomenal. And so for this season, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Hey, if you liked that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. Really helps with the channel.